Global Times, 11th of April 2024, Modi's comments on the relationship between China and India are fascinating. China is developing its navy to control the Indian Ocean while launching an all-out war against the Indian subcontinent to divert India's attention to the north. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's rare direct comment regarding China-India relations has drawn attention. In an exclusive interview with the US magazine Newsweek, he said India's relationship with China is essential. He added that both countries need to urgently address the prolonged situation on our border so that the abnormality in our bilateral interactions can be put behind us. He also stated, "I hope and believe that through positive and constructive bilateral engagement at the diplomatic and military levels, we will be able to restore and sustain peace and tranquility in our borders." He stated that stable and peaceful relations between China and India are crucial for the two nations, the entire region, and the world. Reuters saw the comments as an apparent softening of tone about bilateral disputes between China and India. Over the years, sporadic, sometimes challenging, remarks have been made on China-Indian ties and border issues from the Indian side, especially from individuals in charge of the military and diplomacy. However, Modi's straightforward statement, particularly his unambiguous stance, is highly uncommon and well-timed, drawing much attention from the general public. The last time his remarks were eagerly awaited was when Modi addressed the Group of Seven, G7, summit in Hiroshima, Japan, last year. It was evident that Modi was catering to the Western audience who wanted to see a confrontation between China and India, stressing that peace on India's border with China is necessary for normal relations and that India is committed to protecting its sovereignty and dignity. This time, his comments are more pertinent because they are made ahead of the impending Indian elections and following the escalation of border tensions between China and India as a result of the US's prejudiced position. Regarding the relationship between China and India, Modi's interview has generated a lot of optimism. It demonstrates a readiness to peacefully resolve disputes and improve bilateral ties by reversing the previous trend of India's attitude and actions toward border issues becoming more heated. In actuality, China has always held this viewpoint. The China-Indian relationship is not limited to the border dispute. It ought to be handled correctly and positioned appropriately in the bilateral connection. Both sides possess the knowledge and skills to settle the dispute by military and diplomatic means. It is reasonable to anticipate that bilateral relations will progress on a positive and stable path if India can follow Modi's advice and reach out to China. Of course, Modi is well aware that US and Western public opinion are the primary consumers of these remarks, which were made about an interview published in Newsweek, a prominent American magazine. These remarks might not be as pleasant to those in Washington who want to exacerbate tensions between China and India to undermine China. However, that is precisely the message India wishes to get to them right now. Senior officials in India have been cautious about Washington's intention to intensify the dragon-elephant rivalry or possibly drive China and India into conflict. They have retained strategic independence in forging their relationships with China. To give themselves more leeway, they have also continued to act restrainedly toward domestic and international voices who advocate for further strengthening of ties between the US and India. More significantly, India's viewpoint on the state of present geopolitical and economic relations is reflected in these statements. The thoughts and attitudes of Modi, one of the most significant candidates in this election, will indeed offer a look into the essential direction of India's development in the next stage. This interview covers many areas of India's rise in domestic and international affairs. India's top priority is still development, which requires a supportive regional climate. Conflict with China will stifle the resources needed for development. Conversely, relatively stable relations with China would benefit India more geopolitically and economically. As two of the most visually striking developing nations on the planet and as two ancient Asian civilizations, how we view each other and how we approach development should go beyond the mindset and stereotype that sees us as rivals or friends or as two sides in a zero-sum game where your strength is my weakness. In actuality, China has continuously pushed India to view the two countries' bilateral relationship from a long-term and strategic standpoint. India must always maintain its vigilance and weed out distractions from unscrupulous third parties since it confronts formidable temptations and strategic traps in pursuing this goal.